Football is a very funny sport. One moment you can be on top of the world where it seems like you can do no wrong, but in just flash of a moment that can all be ended, and the next thing you know, you're just another player in the history books. Nobody personified that more than Marco Van Basten, because he might have had the craziest peak of all time that people don't talk about enough today. He was outscoring everyone back in the late 80s and early 90s Serie A, where it was stacked with world-class attackers like Baggio, Maradona, and Klinsmann, and just in general was the most star-studded league by far in the world. Van Basten was absolutely untouchable when he was at the top, with his big 6'2" frame allowing him to compete with the biggest defenders in the air. But what made him stand out from other big target men was his agility and finesse that allowed him to move like a smaller forward. But not only that, some of his goals were, to put it simply, just unthinkable, with him scoring some goals that just didn't seem possible until he scored them. His unique skill set allowed him to reach the absolute pinnacle of football, as he would go on an absolute crazy run in which he would win 3 Ballon d'Ors in 5 years by the young age of 28, as it seemed like he was destined to become one of the greatest football players of all time. But what if I told you Van Basten wouldn't even get the opportunity to play another football match after the age of 28, as his career would come to a tragic end in what may be the biggest what-if story in football. To understand how he got to this stage, we first have to go back to his childhood, where he grew up in the Dutch city of Utrecht as a child. Here, he would fall in love with sports pretty quickly, but his first love wouldn't be football, as instead, Van Basten would dream of becoming a gymnast, in which he would train and take seriously until he decided to put his whole effort into football. His gymnast training would come in handy in football though, as Van Basten himself even said that it was his gymnast training that helped him gain the agility that helped him outmaneuver other players in football. When he first started taking football seriously, he would start playing for a local team called UVV Utrecht until he turned 15, when he moved to a new club called USV Elinkwijk. Van Basten would play at this club for 1 year until the Dutch giants Ajax spotted him and signed him to their professional team at the age of 16. In this period of time, Ajax were in the midst of a transition period, as they were still trying to regain their magic from the 70s, when Cruyff led them to an incredible 3 straight European Cups in a row. However, shortly after Van Basten joined the club, the main man himself, Cruyff, would return to Ajax, and for a young Van Basten this would be huge, as Cruyff was the man he idolized throughout his youth, and now he was playing in the same club as him, as Cruyff helped serve as a sort of a mentor towards Van Basten, as he helped teach the young player all the football knowledge he needed. With that, Van Basten would shortly after make his Ajax debut in 1982 in the match against NEC, as he was substituted on for Cruyff, in which seemed like a passing of a torch moment, and Van Basten would repay the fate put in him this match, as he would score shortly after getting subbed on off of a free kick header. For Van Basten though, that would be his only appearance throughout the season, as he would be stuck on the bench behind Dutch international and European Golden Boot winner Wim Kieft for the remainder of the season. And this trend would continue to the next season, as he would still be stuck as the team's second choice striker behind Wim Kieft. But nonetheless, he would still get opportunities to play in decent amount of games, as he would end up playing in 25 total games and score a respectable 10 goals. In the following season, a big breakthrough for Van Basten would come, as his teammate Wim Kieft would get sold to the Serie A side Pisa that summer, as Van Basten would now be the undisputed #1 striker for Ajax moving forward. However, what followed could not be expected by anyone, because Van Basten would completely level up his game in this season, as he made sure Ajax didn't miss Wim Kieft at all, as he scored an average of more than a goal per match, with his 36 goals in 33 total matches, which is insane to think about because he was still only 19 years old. But here he was, dominating grown professionals, making them look like amateurs in process. But there was more to Van Basten's game than scoring, as he would show in the very next season, as he would play a more deeper role which would allow him to showcase his excellent ability to hold up the ball along with his knack for making the right pass with his vision. This new change for Van Basten would see him get a crazy 19 assists in just 33 matches in the Eredivisie, with him also scoring 22 goals in those matches, as he ended up finishing as the top goal scorer and the top assister the same year. I mean, he was basically doing what Harry Kane is doing nowadays, just almost 30 years earlier and at 20 years old. Though his run as a playmaker would come to an end next season, as he would be moved further up the pitch back to the role he first played, and this move back up saw Van Basten turn into an absolute monster in front of the goal, and it seemed like he couldn't miss even if he tried in some of the games, like his 5-goal game against Heracles Almelo or his 6-goal thrashing against Sparta Rotterdam. and by the end of the season he would score a ridiculous 37 goals in 26 matches in the Eredivisie, which subsequently won him the European Golden Boot. But unfortunately for Ajax, that still wouldn't be enough, because they would finish second, 8 points behind PSV in the Eredivisie, and would only walk away with the Dutch Cup that year. Van Basten would continue tearing the league apart the next season until in a game in December against Groningen, as his brother was visiting from Canada to watch his game, which made Van Basten go even harder to impress his brother. But this would end up messing him up, as he would make a tackle in which he injured his ankle and he had to come off the pitch. He had ended up tearing his ankle ligaments, but the club doctors misdiagnosed the situation and instead advised that he could play even with the injury. But Van Basten knew something was wrong, as he was in a tremendous amount of pain, and he told the manager of Ajax at the time, Cruyff, that he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to play. But Cruyff insisted Van Basten that he had to play in European games, as Ajax had a real chance to win their first European trophy since Cruyff's playing days back in the 70s. So Van Basten and Cruyff came to a compromise, with Van Basten being allowed to skip some training and league games, but in return had to play in every single European game in the European Winners' Cup. While Van Basten looked hampered on the pitch with his ankle injury, he was still able to contribute, as he scored 5 goals in the first 4 rounds, as Ajax reached the finals to play against Lokomotiv Leipzig. The game would start off slow, but in the 23rd minute, Van Basten pulled off the impossible, as he scored a volley from an angle that seemed like it wouldn't be possible for any other players to score but Van Basten. And this would end up being the one and only goal, with Ajax winning their first European trophy since the 70s. And with Van Basten delivering a European trophy to Ajax, it was time for him to move on to a bigger club. And the club he would move to would be AC Milan, another club just like Ajax, who were in the midst of a transition period, with them starting the decade off in the Serie B and also looking like they were going to become bankrupt, until an Italian entrepreneur called Silvio Berlusconi saved the club and invested the money back into the team. The money invested into the club would be used to bring some incredible players, Van Basten included. But the most expensive signing wouldn't be Van Basten, but rather it was Ruud Gullit, who was signed for 6.75 million euros, which made Gullit the most expensive player in football. However, Van Basten's career in AC Milan would start off rocky though, as he would still be feeling the effects of the injury he sustained back in Ajax, which caused him to miss most of the season, as he would only play in 11 Serie A matches that season. But luckily for Van Basten, there wouldn't be much scrutiny for him, as while Van Basten struggled to stay on the pitch in his first season, Ruud Gullit would have an incredible first year, as he led AC Milan to their first Serie A title in 8 years. With Van Basten's shaky fitness, his spot on the Dutch national team was in question, as the Euros was coming right up in the summer, which would be very important for the Netherlands. Because you have to understand, just a decade ago, Cruyff and the Dutch national team took over football with their total football style, which earned them the distinction of the best team in the world. But unfortunately for the Netherlands, they would have 0 trophies to show for it, as they would lose 2 World Cup finals in this period. And it only went downhill after Cruyff retired, as they would end up failing to qualify for the next 2 World Cups in 1982 and 1986. And this would lead to now, in 1988, as the Netherlands returned to international tournaments as they qualified for the Euros, with them now being led by the next generation of Dutch players like Gullit, Rijkaard, and Van Basten. And this would motivate Van Basten to work hard, not only to maintain his spot on the team, but to also make a big impact, as he desperately wanted to help the Netherlands end their trophy drought. And to help him do that, he would meet up with his old mentor Cruyff to help him get back into shape and prepare him to be the best version of Van Basten he can be. This training would pay off for Van Basten, as he would narrowly make the team, but he still wouldn't earn the right to start, as in the very first match in the Euros, he was stuck on the bench as the Netherlands lost 1-0 to the Soviet Union. In the very next game though, Van Basten would get picked to start against one of the tournament favorites, England, and this choice ended up being the greatest decision the Netherlands could have made, because Van Basten would put on an incredible performance this game, scoring a hat-trick to single-handedly beat England 3-1. And the Netherlands would keep up their form to the next game as they beat Ireland 1-0 behind Van Basten's former teammate Kief's goal in the 82nd minute, which would send Netherlands through to the knockouts, where they would face a very tough West Germany team, who finished as the runner-ups in the past 2 World Cups. This match would start off with West Germany earning a penalty in the 55th minute, as Matthäus would convert to give them a 1-0 lead. But soon the Netherlands would get a penalty of their own, as Koeman would comfortably score the penalty to tie the game at 1-1. And the game would stay tied until 2 minutes before stoppage time, when Van Basten would score an incredible tight sliding goal to win Netherlands the game 2-1, as they would advance to the finals to face a team they lost to earlier in the tournament, Soviet Union. The game would be set at Olympiastadion in Munich, and this game would be a very different one right off the start, as Guillit scored in the 32nd minute to put the Netherlands up 1-0. But something incredible happened right after halftime, as Van Basten scored a spectacular volley from an impossible angle that saw Netherlands go up 2-0, as they would finish the match as the champions of Europe, and Van Basten would in process win the Golden Boot with his 5 goals in 4 games, helping the Netherlands end their drought. Van Basten would bring his amazing form back to Serie A next season, with AC Milan only getting stronger with them bringing in a fellow Dutch player, Rijkaard. And by the end of the year, he would win his first ever Ballon d'Or at 24 years old, even with him missing the first half of the year from injuries. But Van Basten's dominance wouldn't be limited to Serie A, however, as he would lead AC Milan to the European Cup quarterfinals against Bremen, where heading into the second leg, the aggregate was tied 0-0, as both teams failed to score goals in the first leg. The score would stay 0-0 in the second leg until Van Basten scored a penalty in the 32nd minute, which would turn out to be the only goal of the game as AC Milan advanced to the semi-finals to take on Real Madrid. The first leg against Real Madrid had Real Madrid take the first lead, as Sanchez scored off of a corner to put Real Madrid up 1-0 just before halftime. But it wouldn't take long until AC Milan came with a goal of their own, as Van Basten scored a ridiculous diving header to tie the aggregate at 1-1, with the score staying that way heading into the second leg. But the second leg would turn out much different for both sides, as Milan completely dismantled Real Madrid, with 5 different players including Van Basten all scoring once to win the tie 6-1. In the finals, Milan took on Bucharest, and at this point it seems like there was nothing that could stop this Milan team, as Milan made the game look easy, with Guillit and Van Basten both scoring 2 goals to win the game 4-0, as Van Basten finished the tournament as the top scorer and proved to everyone why he deserved the Ballon d'Or. In the following season, Van Basten would continue to do what he does best, score goals, and by the end of the year he would win his second Ballon d'Or of his career at the age of 25, with him joining the rare company of players who won back-to-back Ballon d'Ors. But that wouldn't be the only thing Van Basten would attempt to win back-to-back though, as Milan made another deep run in the European Cup this year, this time reaching the semi-finals to face Bayern. The first leg would stay scoreless until the 77th minute, as Van Basten scored the one and only goal of the game to put Milan up 1-0 in the tie. The second leg would be a lot more tightly contested though, as Bayern scored in the 59th minute to tie the aggregate 1-1, which would force the game to go into extra time, where AC Milan took back the lead in the 101st minute, which would be good enough for Milan to move to the finals on away goals, even with Bayern scoring just 5 minutes later. In the finals, Milan would play Benfica, and this game would be hard fought from both sides, as both sides refused to concede a goal until the 67th minute, where Van Basten would show off his vision to assist Rijkaard the game-winning goal, with Van Basten winning his back-to-back European Cup. However, in the next season, Van Basten's form would take a massive dip, with him having a public feud with the manager Sachi over differences in playing styles, as Van Basten wanted the team to play more free-flowing attacking football he played under Cruyff, but Sachi instead wanted to stick to his disciplined build-up from the defense type of style. Ultimately, the whole team's form took a hit this season, as Milan would miss out on the title to Sampdoria, which would cause Milan to sack Sachi and bring in a former AC Milan player, Fabio Capello, to become their new manager. This change would bring a quick turnaround in form for the whole team, but especially for Van Basten, as he looked better than ever, with him scoring 25 goals in the Serie A, which was the first time anybody scored that amount in the Serie A in over 25 years. And this was especially impressive because the back pass rule hadn't even come to effect yet until the next season. The scariest part of all this though was he somehow looked even better the next season, as he scored 13 goals in 15 games in the Serie A, which would earn him his 3rd Ballon d'Or of his career at 28 years old. Unfortunately for Van Basten though, his injury problems would come right back, as he suffered an ankle injury in a game against Ancona, which would force him to miss 6 months as he had to go through multiple surgeries. Van Basten would make his long-awaited return in the Champions League final, where Milan were taking on Marseille, but this game would only continue Van Basten's suffering, as in the 86th minute, Marseille defender Baresi hit Van Basten's ankle as he contested the ball in the air, which forced him to leave the game, as he had re-injured his ankle. This ankle injury was particularly horrible as he had re-injured the same ankle that wasn't even fully healed, which put his career in jeopardy as he was in horrible pain and in no condition to play after this injury. He would attempt any and everything to get back into fitness to play football again, with him trying multiple treatments over the next 2 years. Treatments like hypnotherapy, acupuncture, and even Ilyasarov apparatus, which was a gruesome procedure used to reshape bones, but none of these things worked. And when one of his trusted advisors told him to visit India to talk to a faith healer, he knew his time was up, and he decided to have a surgery that would stop the pain but would prevent him from playing football ever again. And August 17, 1995, he would officially retire, and he would make his final appearance at the San Siro as he came back to say goodbye to Milan fans, players, and coaches one last time. And just like that, Van Basten's career was over, which is very sad to think about because he would play his final ever match in the same stadium as his greatest day as a footballer when he won the Euros in the Olympia Stadion. But who could have predicted the same stadium could bring so much sadness to Van Basten and football fans worldwide?